I would define racism as systematic discrimination based on perceived racial identity.
Reveals itself in the policies that literally undergird and perpetuate issues on educational funding, housing access to capital or money for people of color and other marginalized community.
It is a structural condition that's been created out of many years of capitalism, of inequities, and of oppression.
I personally define racism as a situation where a person uses their power because of the color of their skin to discriminate against someone else who does not have that same power.
You know, any word, action, or thought that I have that incorporates race in a way that's inappropriate or disruptive or hurtful.
We understand that the history is here, we understand that slavery existed here, we even understand the civil rights movement here. But I think what South Carolina has not yet dealt with is how do we emerge from that? How do we deal with the backlash to that civil rights movement? How do we deal with the structural inequities that are still here in education, healthcare, housing? We can go through the entire gamut.
Because we are on the precipice, I think, of fantastic change. The South follows South Carolina. So if we can take advantage of this moment, look at our history, and understand the potential that lies ahead of us in the future, we can do amazing things.
If you're black in this state or brown in this state, you're faring far worse than most people in the country. And we ought to be challenged by that as a state. And what I'm talking about here now is access to opportunity. It's impossible to think about a South Carolina in the future that doesn't have adequate representation at every level for the people who've contributed so much in blood, sweat, and tears to this state and what it has become today.
Talent is universal, but opportunity is not. And so if we don't focus on racial equity, then we leave behind lots of the answers that will solve the problems for all of us on this planet.
So the nonprofit sector is committed to improving quality of life and creating vibrant, equitable communities. But when you look at the issues we try to address, absolutely every issue and the disparities tie back to race.
What we need to do to change the narrative in the state of South Carolina is, one, acknowledge our history. We need to own it, frankly, I think. In all its warts, in all its iterations, we need to own the history. Two, I think we need to make substantial progress in policy at the systems and the institutional level. And then three, I think we just have to be honest about what we don't know and how uncomfortable we are about this issue, but lean into it and deal with it anyway.
Community leadership is really at the board level. And so that's the next big challenge at Together SC, is for us to figure out how do we take this into the boardroom.
To change the narrative, we should each individually commit to taking action in just 3 ways. You know, we all have power to do something in our lives, whether it's with our families or in our workplaces or in our communities.
I'm going to continue to question and challenge the status quo. Gentle agitator, if you will, of this conversation. Every chance I get to talk about why it's important for us to deal with issues of equity, which for me means that the outcomes are equitable, that the outcomes provide opportunity, that the decisions might be hard, but we're going to stick to those. I'm going to do it.
And I also think it's important for African Americans not to be the only ones having these conversations. Sometimes we feel like we have to bear the burden of teaching everybody about race, but it really is up to everybody to have this conversation, to make these changes.
Is having the courage on a day-to-day basis to stand up for what's right.
If someone's interested in speaking up, writing a letter to the editor, perhaps saying that I just heard someone from such and such organization share this bit of data, and this is how it relates to our community and what I'm doing, we've got a team ready to help them get that data, get those facts, and write some op-eds. So speak out.
If we could slow down just a minute and personally reflect on who we are and where we are, I think that would take us a long way in interrupting racism in our society here.